Hey everyone, this is Louis7 and I will be doing a review and just letting you all know about the update 23.1.7 patch notes in Lord of the Rings Online, which is releasing today. The servers might be back up by the time this video is up. I'm actually recording this the night before this is going up, but anyway, I have taken some time to look over the notes and just wanted to give some of my thoughts and a review of the update. Mainly because I thought this was going to be update 23.2, but earlier today I found out that's not going to be released until later, and that includes, I thought update 23.2 was going to be the one that included the Beorning and Burglar class changes, as well as some other changes here with other classes I see, but anyway, I thought that would be 23.2, but 23.2 is the one with the raid, and that one is still in beta and bull roar and won't be released until later. But as far as update 23.1.7 and what's in it, the Beorning's getting their rework that's going to be in this update. And also the Burglar, I was actually going to start working on a redline trait build for them, but then I remembered they were also going to receive an update. They have received some things. I don't think it's as major as the Beorning. And there have been some minor changes to Guardian, Minstrel, Hunter, Lore Master, and Captain. But as far as this video goes, it won't be as thorough as my Beorning review because I commented on every single little thing there for a long time. This will be much shorter and to the point of what I think of the update, but I will be linking these notes in the description if you do want to follow along. So to start off with Beorning, that's the first thing they have here. They actually have the new seasonal instance, which is the Battle at Frost Bluff and Boss from the Vaults, so I'm kind of curious if the boss from the vaults will be available in the legendary server or not, because it is at Helagrod, it looks like. So I'm kind of curious if that will be. It includes 2 tiers of difficulty, and it has some cosmetic and other rewards. And they can also provide Figments of Splendor, they're called, and you can barter for unique cosmetic rewards from those. I think that type of stuff is nice. I personally love seasonal instances like Thring they did in the summer. That's the only other one I've really participated in, or I'm aware of they have. So this one's kind of like a wintery one of that. It's a giant boss from Helagrod. That's why I'm curious if it's in the legendary server, because I think it'd be a fun thing to have in the legendary server, and it does seem level appropriate to me. So I think that'll be nice to see how it plays out, and I really do hope it's in the legendary server to sum that up. And then they do go into the Beorning changes. I talked a lot about this in my Beorning, the review of these changes, if you're curious of more of my opinion on this. But overall, I'm glad the Beorning's getting some changes. I think the Thrash rework to generate Wrath will be very interesting. I do think that I just wish there was some more to it, especially for the redline Beornings, but we'll have to see how it plays out. And I also don't particularly like the change to heavy armor overall, but I see why they did it. And then finally, I do like a travel form for Beorning here out of combat in their bear form. And I'm curious how that works out, if it's like full mount speed or not. But overall, I like seeing the changes. I just basically wish there was more, and understanding the LOTRO dev team and their stuff work with the class changes and all the iterations they do. Maybe we'll see more in the future, but I was just hoping for more basically, and that's not what it's looking like it happened to turn out to be. As far as the Burglar goes, I'm not too sure on the specifics. I'm not going to pretend to be like a great Burglar player, even though I do have one and enjoy playing it sometimes. And I've been thinking about, again, doing the redline trait guide for them, as well as leveling a new Burglar to see how they are at low levels. But as far as my Burglar experience goes, the notes seem, I don't have too big of an opinion on them. I've seen some people say they've been nerfed, as well as buffed, so I don't know if some things have been nerfed. It looks like maybe some things buffed. Overall, I feel like the Burglars need a buff because they don't seem too viable right now, especially their debuffs compared to something like the Lore Master. They aren't really, as far as I know, wanted for their debuffs compared to a Lore Master. So it looks like some of their debuffs have been increased. So I think that's a good thing if that is the case. I'm just trying to read based off this what I know of the Burglar. And they also have Touch and Go, seems more viable as a defensive reactive cooldown, it sounds like. Some debuff duration was reduced for the skill All In. Damage increased. They say they have skill damage and dot damage increased, with reveal weakness decreasing in potency. The Burglar damage needed to increase to compensate. Honestly, I feel like Burglar damage needed to just increase, not only increase to compensate from reveals weakness. It looks like it actually doesn't specifically say reveal weakness has a decrease in potency. I don't see that in the notes, but as far as I know, and from that bottom line there, it does say reveal weakness decreasing in potency. And you can't stack reveal weakness now, so I think this will be something I'll have to see how it plays out. And I just hope burglars do more damage and are more viable, and maybe their debuffs are stronger. That'll be interesting to see. Again, that's something like the Beorning, we'll have to see how it plays out. So Guardian Flash of Light damage moved to a normalized progression. That sounds like a good thing. As far as I know, Flash of Light is a yellow line light damage thing. It's maybe from the mark you apply. I'm not too sure what it is just based off the name. I'd have to actually look at what it is, but moving something like that to a normalized progression is always a good thing to me, so that's where I'll leave that. And the minstrel skills, all their bubbles, Get to the Hammerhand, Legend of Helm Hammerhand, Story of the Hammerhand. Their bubbles now base of 10% of targets max morale. I think that's a good change because right now they are very weak and just give barely any morale and just aren't worth casting at all, even solo. And that's 10% before bonuses. So I do like seeing that change, even though I don't even play Minstrel that much. The next one is skill queuing should be much smoother for hunters, and particularly with blue line recent manhunters. I find that interesting that skill queuing will be smoother, particularly for blue line recent manhunters. That's kind of specific, but anything to be smoother, that's a good thing. So Lore Master Command Pet can no longer directly target other players. That one sounds odd, but then in the next sentence they do say the use of this ability in sparring was causing significant performance issues, which is also kind of odd, I think, but you know, that's just a change. It's kind of whatever at this point. That's a good thing overall. And then this one is actually interesting for the captain. They have Oathbreaker's Shame can only be used in combat. As far as I know, that's not really... I mean, you could use it like pre-pull, I guess. Overall, I don't think that will have too big of an effect. But the big thing with this is it applies an immunity effect on its target, preventing another use of Oathbreaker's Shame on the same target for 3 minutes. So this prevents basically multiple captains from just stacking Oathbreaker's Shame, and they'll now have to wait a hard 3 minutes to be able to do that. I don't have too much of an opinion on this. Obviously, it's a nerf if you have multiple captains in your group, trying to keep Oathbreaker's Shame more of an uptime. And if you all aren't familiar with Oathbreaker's Shame, it's a long cooldown to greatly increase the incoming damage for a single target. Overall, I actually think that I don't know, the change makes sense. I don't know if it's necessarily a positive change or a negative change, but it makes sense. And that's where I'll leave that. So the next set of changes they have is items. And this one is new rewards to the Yule Festival, new items to the loot boxes, and I normally don't think that's a good thing because it usually dilutes the pull if you're trying to get something. And placeholder armor appearances. Okay, so placeholder armor from the loot boxes have been updated to final appearances. I guess that's a good thing if you're opening loot boxes. Again, I'm not a fan of them. There is one thing here about the buff for Warden set bonus. Fire at Will has been refreshed to give it a competitive ratings buff. I have no idea why this is in items, to be honest, and not in class changes, because set bonus, that is actually in their trait, Fire at Will. It's I was playing a lot of Louis Den lately, recording that, and I was playing Yellow Line. I don't even think I have Fire at Will at him, but this just made me think of that, giving it a competitive ratings buff. I don't know if their intention is to try and make Yellow Line more competitive from that, as in competitive, choosing them as a support class spec. They actually do a lot of damage at medium levels right now, around level 40. But I'm just kind of curious how that works out and why it's in items changes and not in class changes. And then Thickle Gundu, which is one of the new Update 23 instances, can drop incomparable weapons instead of rare weapons on tier 3 difficulty. That makes sense to me. I think that's a good change, even though I don't really participate in that because I don't really play in-game too much at Update 23. Okay, so now that that train went by, we can get on with this, and the next one is, just so y'all know, for these items specifically, before I get far into this, I'm going over these in more detail just because they're more specific. With stuff like the class changes, it's kind of broad, and except for the few changes, and some of the other changes are a lot more broad we'll get into, but these item changes specifically I just have more to comment on. And this one, the next one here, is level 51 to 54 gear that creates at the level a character or instance space has been adjusted so that it will have more appropriate stat values, and the pieces will create at item level 51, so having more appropriate stats is always a nice thing. That sounds like a positive change. I don't know if there was anything wrong with that gear before, but more appropriate stat values is a good thing. And that sounds kind of like a preparation for the legendary servers approaching there as well, so that'll be nice, especially since I'm enjoying the legendary servers so much. So the next one is Dwarf Holds rewards. Quartermasters have new cosmetic items to be traded for your coins of Graric. I don't know what those coins are, even though I have played some of Update 23 enough to know that I, at least as far as the in-game, am not enjoying it too much. Guess having more cosmetic items isn't a bad thing, and just something else to spend in-game currency like that on is good. Crafted bassoons will now display a bassoon and slash music instead of a fiddle. Yeah, that makes sense. That sounds like a bug fix to me. And then the Forgotten Box Vendor has been introduced to Lalia's Market to allow players to purchase the older obsolete loot boxes. This one's interesting because the older, now obsolete loot boxes had some good things in them. I think a lot better things than the new loot boxes. But you would still have to have a sturdy steel key to open those, which you can't get. Actually some of those loot boxes had a lot of value because you can't get them anymore. I think they might lose value Thursday because of that. I don't really have too much else to say on that. Again, I'm not a fan of loot boxes in general in this game, but I guess being able to purchase some older ones to use your sturdy steel keys can be useful. And then hidden cosmetic instruments on outfits no longer cause a default loot to show in combat. That is useful. Well, not necessarily useful, but a good change. Because if you have your instrument, if it's not a loot and you have it hidden, and when it shows in combat you don't want it to just be a default loot, it could still be a regular instrument, so I think that's a good change there. More of a bug fix, it sounds like. And the last one they have here is Angmar Gearing Update. Again, this one will apply to the legendary servers where I play a lot, so I take particularly interest in this one, and this one is many level 40 to 50 items obtained from Angmar content have had their base stats improved to the approximate equivalent of similar Heligrod gear. And the Heligrod gear, as they actually say here in the notes, had more favorable itemization budgets. And then some of the odd stats on these items have been retained, but the pieces have been updated, so they do grant a portion of main stat, or some vitality at least, to make them more usable for their intended classes. And these pieces have not been fully modernized, so they don't feature stats like finesse that are common later in the game. Overall, I think that's a good change. Having more viable and more consistent gear is definitely a good thing, and one of the big problems I have seen just from playing on the legendary servers and leveling some lower level characters, especially with crafting still, which wasn't, at least so far, isn't in the items list. I have heard, however, that they did fix crafting. I don't know if this is the case. We'll have to see Thursday. It might just not be in the notes here, or might be later down in the notes, or even be with update 23.2, which I think from the beta of 23.2 is what I heard it from, and saw some players talking about that. But the next set is quests and adventures. The big things here is Rift and Heligrod. Dragonwing have had tier 2 and tier 3 difficulties added, and I think that's the big thing there. They also added a new playable landscape to Western Foothills of Angmar, and they say the Western Foothills of Angmar have been given a visual update. I actually want to look at this real quick. So go to Angmar here. Yeah, I'm not sure where like Western Foothills is to them. So I'm kind of curious what that will be like, if that'll be something that has quests in it now, like level 40 something, group quests or whatever. But yeah, that's kind of interesting. And then they have some things about in-game daily quests now, rewarding 5 tokens up from 2. And then there are a lot of different like decoration, different just landscape, frill, just a lot of bug fixes and that type of stuff, adding little textures, grounding a lot of stuff. I know there's a lot of stuff fixing stuck spots where you could get stuck. I did see this, I don't see it right now, but one thing I thought was interesting that I actually found, there was this chunk of ore that was stuck in a rock, I think, or maybe stuck in a tree in the old forest, and whatever it was, they fixed it. I remember seeing that. I thought it was interesting because I ran into that. So yeah, as far as my opinion on that, I think it's good to see. It's a huge list of these changes. I think it's good to see that they're still updating stuff like that. Yeah, it's just a huge list, so I think that's a good thing. And then we're going to go ahead and move on. That's a really long list if y'all are looking at the notes, but that was finishing quests and adventure areas, that section of the update. And then the next update here is there's a beta stage for an update to have dynamic font resizing. So for players that play in 4K resolution, if you are unfamiliar, font does not scale. So the font is really tiny, which can be a good thing for some people, but some people also like to be able to read, especially if the text becomes too small, especially if you're like sitting far away, maybe have a smaller 4K screen, or just whatever situation. It could just make the text too small because it's higher resolution. So they now have quest log and quest bestowal panels now support dynamic font resizing, and you can resize the text. It looks like this is in a beta, even though it's in the update, it's like they're beta testing it, which is kind of odd, but they just have it labeled like capital beta there. I'm not sure. I assume that's what that means. And then they say it does only persist during the current client session, so you'll have to keep redoing it. And they say it might be replaced by a different solution in the future, so that's what I'm interested in, the different solution in the future, if that's going to be dynamic to all the text to actually make the game a lot more playable in 4K resolution. And then they have some changes to names and social panel and raid locks, and like group stage info has been renamed to raid locks, and just some changes as far as that goes. They also added item examination tooltips now show what items disenchant into when applicable. That's what it says. I don't know, that wording's a bit weird, but as far as I understand, your Flame of Calamere thing, whenever you go to disenchant something, it'll show what the item can disenchant to. That's what it sounds like. And then this one's actually a pretty big change. There's a new panel called Socket Control that can be used to socket or unsocket individual essences. So you can now override a socketed essence, and that destroys the current essence, replacing it with another of your choice. So right now you can't do this. I think this is a big and significant quality of life change. You can just replace your essences and destroy the one in it. And you can still use, it looks like you can still use a, I'm not sure if they actually still have scrolls to swap essences, but it says you can unsocket an individual essence for mithril coins. So I think that is going to be a huge change. I hope that essence scrolls can still swap them or remove them. Remove individual essences, unsocket them at least. But as far as I'm concerned, that's one annoying thing about in-game right now, and I think that'll be a huge quality of life improvement, even for the legendary servers. Going up in that, and when you do get essence gear in that, I think it will be helpful a lot. And I do think that's a really good change, and kind of hidden there in the bottom because it's a kind of significant change, to be honest. And then that is the end of the UI section here, moving on to the miscellaneous section. So in the advanced graphic options, frill terrain color, there's a new graphics option to applying terrain color to frills to better blend them to underlying terrain, and turning this option off may increase performance. I'm going to be honest, I kind of like frills in this game at first, especially in like Rohan when they really started adding them. I hated frills and always turned that off, even though it's technically like better graphics to have it turned on. I just did not like them. I think they have improved frills greatly in some of the old areas where they have added new frills are a lot better, but I'm still not the biggest fan of frills in LOTRO. I like them over having no frills, and there's the density slider. I don't even like having them full distance density, even though it's again technically not as good graphics appearance. I don't like it. I think it's kind of ugly. And I think this might be an interesting option. As far as performance goes, I shouldn't have much of an issue with that. I don't know how big of an issue that will have, and it just says may increase performance, so I don't even know if it's that big of a deal as far as that goes, and on like what type of system that would have a load on. But I think that's a good option to have something new like that, and I'll definitely be interested in testing that out. Then they have made some just changes to the music commands, fixed map links to Arid Mithrin, Erebor, Steelkeep, Glimmer Deep, Iron Hills, and Northern Mirkwood. Go ahead and finish that out. But loading performance improvements to all collections panels. That's actually good. It takes forever to load the collections panel and load all those, so having an improved performance on that will be nice. And then a new visual effect will appear on chests that will generate favored loot. That one's kind of interesting. I don't know that will generate favored loot, may generate favored loot. It says will generate favored loot. So does that mean if you loot that chest, you're guaranteed to get a piece? Will always have a visual effect on all the same chests? I'm kind of curious what that'll look like. Basically, if it shows if you'll get a piece of gear or not from a chest, or if it's to chests that guaranteed to like give you loot. So I'm kind of curious on that one actually. And then moving on to known issues, there is actually a remark here about Marks of Longbeard. You can barter for dwarf iron fragments for those. That might actually be significant because I see dwarf iron fragments. I think those are the ones that are usually expensive. People buy them for. I'm not sure what they're used for. But that might be a somewhat significant change. I am not too sure, to be honest. I don't know why that's not in the items changes either in that section. And then there is a list of known issues, and this first one kind of bothers me. So the power over time restore given by the blue line trait Prelude to Power for Rune Keepers. So what this does is it makes Prelude to Hope give a power restore. It's pretty insignificant, but overall it restores more power than Prelude to Hope costs. And it can be efficient to use on yourself sometimes in longer healing situations, and even just to give a little bit of power restore to the tank. So it drains power right now instead of restores it. That is kind of an issue because it's something I do use on my Rune Keeper, even my level 20 like 8 or 29 one you see here in the gameplay. And even though I'm playing Lightning here in the gameplay, and this doesn't really come up, I don't know if that's a known issue that they're like trying to fix it or what's going on with that, but hopefully that does get fixed. And then Erebor map is broken for the French game client and only displays in the top left corner of the map. That's not good. And then they have a list of some Beorning known issues that they're trying to fix as well. Hopefully they do get to those, and I commented those more on the Beorning changes video. But that will be it for this review. This one was a lot shorter than the Beorning one. Was a little bit longer than I thought it would be, but there were a lot of little things I started seeing as I was reading this more. But yeah, those are my thoughts on the changes, and just to share this info with you all, some of the changes I highlighted that I thought were more interesting. And again, I didn't go through every single thing, especially for the quest and adventure areas, because there's just a lot there and it's mainly bug type fixes, it looks like. But yeah, if you all have any thoughts you want to share with me on the changes or have any disagreeing opinions, I'm not too sure how much of an opinion I shared on this one. Just, yeah, please do share that, and I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I will try to do more videos like this in the future. I will also, I don't know when update 23.2 will be released, but assuming it has an equal amount of stuff to this, at least I will try to do a similar video on that. I don't know how much update 23.2 will have, because a lot of this stuff I thought was going to be in update 23.2. So to me it sounds like update 23.2 is just going to be the raid, but maybe it will have some more stuff to actually review. And yeah, that'll be it as far as this video goes. I hope you all did enjoy, and if you did, please do consider liking and subscribing for more. That stuff does help my channel, and thanks for watching, everyone.